Thank you very much, Dr. S.P. Mujumdar, Dr. Vidya Yeravatkar, the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Anita Patankar, and all the members of the faculty and students of this great institution called Symbiosis. It is a matter of great happiness for me. The normal words used are honor and privilege, that of course. But it's a matter of great happiness for me to be able to elaborate upon, to elucidate, to discuss, to try and deconstruct this remarkable aphorism, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakkam. And I would like to congratulate Dr. Mazumdar when 50 years ago he set up this great institution for the vision he had. For the vision he had of conceptualizing a place of education which was geographically rooted but was intellectually transcendent of boundaries. This is important. I still recall that when I entered Parliament as a member of the Raj Sabha, at the very entrance of Parliament, it is written Vasudhaiva Kutumbakkam. And when I speak about this concept to you, and I hope to further elaborate it to you in different lectures, I would much rather have done it when I was face to face with you. However much COVID has impelled us to use this online platform, there is no real substitute for interacting with students. But be it as it may, I accept those compulsions. But I want you to think. I want you to think why thousands of years ago our sages and seers thought of a concept like this. There was a time in the deep recesses of history, almost at the dawn of time, when a group of sages, seers, seekers of the truth retired to the forests to meditate, to explore, to try and discover the deep insights that could perhaps explain the bewildering plurality of this cosmos. And it is one of these sages, or a group of them, we don't know, who in our first written outpourings of truth came up with this saying, Ayam nijahu paro veti ganana laguchetasam udara charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakkam. What does it mean? It means this is mine and that is yours. This is the thought of the small-minded. The wise believe that the entire world is one family. The big-hearted believe that the entire world is a family. In other words, such a saying was a deliberate attempt to transcend insularity. What was the general trend at that time? Take people of that age, sometime around 2,500 years before the birth of Christ. As you know now, the Rig Veda, and I will speak more of this when I speak of Hinduism. was earlier dated around 1500 before the birth of Christ or before the Common Era, but new evidence points to it being at least a millennium older. Now, what is it at that time that made them go against the trend? The trend at that time was my people, my family, my tribe is the only reality. What made them say that yes, that may be true, and we will talk about that also, but in essence, the entire world, indeed the entire cosmos, is one family. It required deep insight, deep level of cerebration, deep level of meditational penetration to come to this nugget of wisdom that in essence the world is interdependent, that we who consider ourselves to be isolated are ultimately part of a larger family. Was this an isolated instance? Think. These are people who are not dependent on patronage. They are not looking for God. They are looking for what could perhaps be a verity, truth. That is their search. And as they sat and meditated and tried to see what could be the truth, they came up with Vasudhaiva Kutumbakkam. And we will understand why it applies to us also. But was that an isolated incident? I would submit to you, no. This saying, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakkam, is taken from the Maha Upanishads and occurs in many other seminal Hindu, religious, and secular texts. But again in the Rig Veda, 4,005 years ago, there is another similar saying, Ekam Satya Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. There is one truth, but wise people call it by different names. It is very much similar, where you say that my truth may not be the only truth, and I have an openness to those who may not belong to me, but who are also searchers for the truth. The world is a family, so I decimate artificial barriers created by me. And when I say that truth can have more than one opinion, I equally decimate the barriers because I reveal my openness to difference of opinion, to dialogue, to the ability to listen and not merely dictate. And so it is a similar saying. Let us take a third example. Think about it. Why is it that in this ancient land of ours, there is a repeated refrain about a universality that refuses to be straight-jacketed into narrow dockets of thought? When you say Ekam Satya Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti, this was said at a time when most people said, my truth is the only truth. We are talking about the beginnings of civilization as we know it. These thoughts were uttered then. Take another saying from the same period, same sources. Ano bhadraha kritavo yantu vishvata. Let wise thoughts flow to me in all directions, from all directions. I am open. I am porous. I am willing to listen. I have my view, but I am open to good thoughts coming from all directions. What does it essentially mean? It means that it wants to transcend the limited to the unlimited. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakkam. So all these sayings basically illustrate that there is the seed. When people wanted to insulate themselves from outside opinion because it may weaken authority, it may let in ideas which were subversive, it may bring in thoughts which may not be conducive to mind. People were building walls, and we were saying, let them come from all directions. Therefore, first and foremost, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakkam illustrates a civilizational concept at the level of ideology. Now, what is its practicality? What is its practicality? One of the greatest ways of trying to bring perspective, and we all must occasionally look for perspective and not only knowledge. What brings perspective is sometimes a sense of the finite juxtaposed to the infinite. Think of it in your mind. A small line becomes smaller when compared to a bigger line. A tree that looks big becomes smaller when compared to a bigger tree. This is called perspective. When you juxtapose. Now look at us. You are in the city of Pune, I am in the city of Delhi. And we are on a planet called Earth. The Earth is a smaller planet revolving around a bigger planet called the Sun as part of a solar system. And that solar system is a smaller set of stars, part of a larger galaxy called the Milky Way. Please focus on this. Many of you are bright and intelligent students. You will know this. Why I say perspective? So, we are part of the Milky Way. As you know, light travels at the speed of 300,000 kilometers roughly per second. The Milky Way itself is 50,000 light years across. But today, modern science is telling us that this vast galaxy we call the Milky Way is part of at least, pause, think, mark my word, 125 billion galaxies, which constitutes the cosmos. And each of those galaxies have at least 200 billion stars, most of them bigger than the sun. Now, examine where you are, in Pune or as I am in Delhi, and juxtapose it to the magnificence of this cosmos. Does it behove you to say that this little infinitesimal speck, which is our Earth, not even a speck, 100th of a speck, where we believe that the only world is our reality, when it is juxtaposed to this mind-boggling, unbelievable magnitude of the cosmos, what is the inference or thought that comes to you? That we are not absolute, that we must be, agar सृष्टिकार है तो हम उसके सृष्टि के हिस्से हैं. If there is a cosmos somewhere, there has to be our situation in juxtaposition to another. So to say, given the limited, highly limited nature of our own, that to say that this is the only thing that matters is to ignore, forget ideology, is to ignore the sheer evidence of weight of how large is this universe of which we are a part. We will come to the question how this entire mind-bogglingly large universe is also interconnected, amazingly interdependent, which only proves further, and I will talk about it perhaps in my subsequent lecture in detail, how science is validating. Science is validating the fact that in this infinitely large universe, and by the way, Edwin Hubble, the scientist, discovered in 1929 that this universe, in spite of already being so large, continues to expand every second at the speed of light. In other words, it is boundaryless. In fact, scientists have said, Stephen Hawking among them, that there is not one universe, there are multiverses. So there is great truth in the fact where you somewhat undervalue your own limited importance in your little worlds. But, tell me when you want me to stop, because when I talk to students, but I have another 5 minutes, I suppose, Anita ji, 5-7 minutes. How
Yes,
much?
yes, absolutely.
But now, does that mean for you as students that your individual world is of no importance? I would think not. Your world, your course of study, your university, your little world of joys and grief, of friends and family, they are important. We cannot postulate a principle while negating the fact. These are also important. In fact, you cannot be, I will go further and we will elaborate upon it sometime. You cannot be a globalized citizen of authenticity unless you are also rooted in your own culture, in your own milieu. Now, what is the challenge? And a joke comes to my mind. There was a young IAS officer who went to France on work. It happened to be Karwa Chauth. And so she worked the whole day. When she came back to the hotel, she wanted to see the moon in order so that she could eat. But she couldn't see the moon from her hotel. So she went to the terrace. She took the lift right on top to the top of the hotel. And when she went there, she found a locked door on which it was written entry prohibited. But she was hungry and thirsty, and she still pushed the door to go to the terrace to see the moon. And that pushing of the door alerted an alarm, and within minutes, it's a true story, the French police were there. And now, this is the globalizing world, but there are differences of culture, of practice, of beliefs, of norms. And her French was weak and their English was poor. So they asked her, what are you doing here? She said, I've come to see the moon. They said, why? She said, because of my husband. They said, where is your husband? She said, he is in India. Then they said, why do you need to see the moon for your husband? She said, because I want to eat. They said, what has eating to do with the moon? In other words, a custom that we take for granted seemed opaque, seemed incomprehensible elsewhere. So I never negate the importance of the local milieu. What is important is not to negate the local, but to learn to harmonize the micro with the macro. The real challenge today for all of you As you step out of the university or in the university, as you perhaps go to a job elsewhere or to another university, is to come out not as photocopies but as authentic Indians and proud products of symbiosis, and yet nurture a vision that is larger than merely the milieu that nurtured you. That is called the challenge not of today, but since time immemorial. How do you harmonize the micro with the macro? Tulsidas says in Ramcharitmanas, as he's explaining what is Maya. You know what is Maya? We will talk about it. Maya is at one level avidya, ignorance. At another level dosha, error of perception. At a third level, illusion, the illusion of the world in the concept of Advaita. So Tulsidas is asked by Lakshman, explain to me Maya. And look at the remarkable brevity with which Tulsidas, in the words of Ram, says one line. Main arumor tor te Maya. Mine, I, mine, and yours. This sense is Maya. This is ignorance. This is dosha, error of perception. Because what we said in the shloka of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakkam, that the small-minded only are about yours and mine. Udar charitanam. Think of ours. Yours, valid. Mine, valid. From this thesis and antithesis, can we derive a synthesis? That synthesis is in your self-interest. It is not preaching the past. It is not sermonizing. It is in your interest. If you escape the narrowness of thought, you become or are likely to become, as Dr. Mazumdar visualized, a more successful citizen in a globalizing world. Otherwise, you become, there is a fatal disease, my young students. It's called a prisoner of the local milieu, where you become a prisoner only of your little worlds. There is a way in the south where they catch a monkey. Then those who want to catch a monkey, I was told this by somebody, that they take a coconut fruit and they hollow it out with a hole just big enough for a monkey to put his paw in. And inside that coconut, they put some candy, some sweets, and then tie that coconut fruit with a chain. So the monkey comes. He is able to put his hand in and grasp the sweets. He can escape. He can escape if he lets go the sweets. But he's not willing. He's not willing because if he lets go the sweets, his fist becomes smaller, and like it entered the coconut fruit, it can go out. He can run away. He can get his freedom or her freedom. But you are not prepared to leave that sweet, that small amount of candy in that coconut. So he continues to hold it. His fist is too big. He's caught. When you are caught by the local, then you become a prisoner of the milieu, and you reduce your capabilities. You reduce your capabilities of meeting the challenges of the globalizing world. One Urdu couplet I suddenly came to my mind. Beautiful. Please listen to it. I'll explain it. खुले सहरा में थी मेरी असीरी दीद के काबिल. In this infinite open horizon, my imprisonment was worth watching. खुले सहरा में थी मेरी असीरी दीद के काबिल, मेरी हद निगह का चार सू दीवार बन जाना. The limits of my own ability to see became the four walls around me. The horizon is open. If you can see beyond, you will not be imprisoned. And therefore, I say to you, there are certain emotions which a larger vision inculcates in you. These are love, respect, empathy, tolerance. These are emotions which are positive. Not positive because they are morally good. They contribute to peace of mind. Peace of mind contributes to efficiency of output. Love, respect, tolerance, empathy, openness of mind, and a narrow, brittle, little world inculcates suspicion, distrust, hatred, even violence, anger. These are negative emotions. Again, not in the morality sense, because they keep you prisoners like that little monkey into a very small world. So I say to you, and that is why all religions, as Dr. Majumdar said, all religions, in their spiritual vision, in the level of metaphysics, of concept, all religions preach these positive emotions. But people of religion, when misguided, create walls. Symbiosis, by the sheer energy and merit of its motto, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakkam, teaches you to transcend these boundaries. And I will end with a great Sanskrit shlok. Om Seh Navavattu. Om Seh Navavattu. Together may we move. Om Seh Nav Bhunaktu. Together may we enjoy. Sahavirya Karvavahe. Together may we perform. Tejasvinau Dhitamastu Ma Vidvishwa Avahe. May what we study lead to the brilliance of understanding, leading us to greater knowledge and true creativity. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you so much.